All right, Dave, separate fact from fiction here with Colin Kaepernick.
Absolutely. But first and foremost, I really think in this case there's a difference between misinformation and disinformation. Like, misinformation is when we're making, basic mistakes and, trying to attribute things that aren't true. Disinformation implies a campaign that's aiming to discredit Colin Kaepernick. And I really think that's what we're looking at from some of the higher circles of NFL ownership, if you look at what they're saying to reporters. And some of the disinformation that we're seeing is, first and foremost, this idea that he only wants to go to a team if he's a starter, and that's why he hasn't been signed. Spoke to Colin Kaepernick, spoke to his people. That's not true. Second thing, only wants to go to a team, this is something else you're hearing, if he's paid $10 million a year. That's not true. Another thing that you've heard, it's come out today, it's in the Sporting News. 3 teams have contacted Colin Kaepernick about meetings. Again, talking to people very close to Colin Kaepernick. That's not true. They're waiting by the phone, waiting for a phone call, not getting it. He's in great shape. Oh, and the last thing, and this is the really important one because this was in Peter King's column, and that, as you well know, that is the column that becomes the reference point for all the NFL news, is this idea that he doesn't really want to play football, that he's tired of it, that he wants to pursue social activism instead. Yes, he wants to pursue social activism, but yes, he wants to play. He's working out 6 days a week. He says he's in the best shape of his life. The eye test certainly says that as well. 29 years old. His stats speak for themselves compared to some of the other quarterbacks that have been signed. So here we are.
Why does Kaepernick think he has not been contacted?
Well, honestly, he plays that very close to the vest. And I think what he's doing, and the reason why, I'm on your show and not him, for example, is that he still wants to do his social activism, but he doesn't want to give the NFL any excuse for why he's not being signed other than what's sort of blaringly obvious, which is that, he's being blackballed because of his politics, and it's a shot across the bow at any other athlete who wants to use the field for political purposes. So all he says is that he's feeling really positive, he's in great shape, his smile ear to ear, and just say, I'm just excited to play football, and I'm just waiting, and I can't wait to get the chance, and when I get the chance, I'll be ready. Now, people around him, people very close to him are just like, yeah, like this is about politics, and it's just very frustrating because, you see some of the people who are being signed by NFL teams and some of their sketchy backgrounds, and you hear all the time about the NFL being a meritocracy and winning matters more than anything else. I believe that's what John Harbaugh said a couple months back when asked about Kaepernick being blackballed. And it's just becoming harder and harder to say that with a straight face with some of the quarterbacks being signed. And then that's when you get the disinformation campaign. Like, well, yeah, maybe he's better than Blaine Gabbert, but he's not being signed because we hear he really just doesn't want to play anymore. And that's just not true.
What if an owner or owners just came out and said how they really felt that, look, we don't want to bring him in. We don't want to, it's a disruption. The media coverage in a negative light here with what happened before the anthem.
Be honest.
Yes.
It would certainly be honest. It would also, be, I think, terrible public relations for the league because, even though certainly Colin Kaepernick's a very polarizing figure for a lot of fans, there are 2 big minefields if they did something like that. The first is that polarizing also implies that there are a lot of fans who really do look up to him, and you look at the jersey sales, and that says something. The second thing, and this is something that doesn't get discussed very much, is Colin Kaepernick's very popular with other NFL players. Mm-hmm. He was voted, gave the Courage Award by his 49ers teammates, even though a lot of them didn't necessarily agree with what he was doing. They respected him. And just in terms of his work ethic, his personality, having been around him for 8 hours on Saturday, he's remarkably personable. He's got time for everybody. He's the antithesis of what we think of when we think of the textbook entitled athlete. And you really do run a risk in a league that is 67 to 70% African American of Colin Kaepernick becoming somewhat of a martyr if he doesn't get on the field.
He's Dave
Zirin. And they're explicit about it.
I'll leave you with this. Does Colin Kaepernick play this year?
Odds are no.
No?
And I hope I'm wrong. And if it happens, it'll happen on much more of an ad hoc basis after the season has began.
Yeah, I believe that. I think he'll get a chance, but I think you're right. They may have to have one of those, come on down, we need a little bit of help here.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.